So in this video we're going to be creating Met, the little hard hat wearing robot that shoots out spreads of bullets. So let's take a look at the original Mega Man game. And he ends up shooting 3 bullets at a time, and it could be anywhere between 1 to 5 sequence shots. And when his hat is down, he's basically invincible, so you have to kind of kill him when his hat's up. And so we'll stop there. Now let's take a look at ours. So we're gonna jump ahead. We're just gonna kill these guys real quick. I have them down on the lower platform or highway. So he's down here. So I'm gonna go invincible. You see he's invincible. We'll shoot the spreads out. And then we can kill him the same. Get the bonus ball if he drops it. Okay, so we're going to be making that guy today, and let's get started. Alright, so we have our previous project open. If you haven't been following along, the link is in the description. All the projects that we've been working on for this video series are up on my GitHub. The last project we worked on was number 24, which was Kamadoma, that enemy. So that's the one that we have open up right now. If you go on there, you can basically get all the sprite sheets and the audio files and everything if you go and download the project. So if you've been following along, open yours up. If not, go grab it, and you can follow along with us, because there's a lot of files that we use that are not going to be, you're going to be like, where are those? It's because we've been basically doing this in the series. We've been building it little by little. Alright, so first off, to create Met, we're going to just get this out of the way. And we're going to go to the graphics folder, and we're going to get his sprites out of that enemy sheet. So find the enemies, and we're going to go to the editor, and he's basically up here. There's only 2 frames to him, when his helmet's down and when his helmet is up. So we're going to grab those 2 first. So let's get that. And this one. Okay. So the first one, we're going to call it, he's called Met for short. I think his technical name is Metall, or Metall, however you want to pronounce it. But we're going to use his full name for this. So that's going to be closed, and your pivot's going to be in the bottom center. And then the open one, and that's also going to be in the bottom center. So if we apply that, we should have the open and the closed. So now that we have those 2, we can close that out. Now we're going to create our game object. So over here, over in the list of all the objects, you can right click if you have a little bit of space. If not, you can hit this plus sign up here and then create an empty. And so we're going to call it Metall. And you can reset the transform. And all these sprites are kind of small, so we're going to scale them up 1.5 on the X and the Y. And then the tag, we're going to use the enemy tag, and the layer is going to be the enemy layer. And then you're going to go over to the scripts folder, and then the enemies, and inside of there you're going to drag over the enemy controller. But before you do that, lost it. We're going to drag that over. So it's going to bring in all the components that are tied to that. So animator, we'll get back to that when we create the actual animator and the animations. And the box collider, we're going to basically fill that in, but before we get to that, we're going to have to attach the sprite, so we can just reset it. Alright, so rigid body, now he doesn't move, so he doesn't actually move anywhere. So, but we're going to leave him on dynamic instead of making him static. So we're going to leave it on dynamic. We're going to change the collision to continuous, sleeping to never, and we're going to lock his X, Y, and Z. So we're not going to let him move anywhere. And then down here on the sprite, we're going to go back over the graphics. We're going to expand this and scroll down and look for him. And we're going to use the closed one by default. Like all the enemies, we put them all on the 10th layer, so layer 10. Now back up the box collider, we're going to right click and reset it so it pulls in all that in. And if we bring this over so we can see what we're doing. Ooh, wrong one. So, where's that at? Not Mambu, Metall. So I actually reset the box collider again. There we go. So now we're going to bring in his collider a little bit. So bring it to 0.16 on the X and then 0.09 on the Y. So it brings it in that 1 pixel inside of the black. So then we're going to, okay, done. We're going to set up the enemy controller properties. So I don't think I have the page up. Yeah, I'm not going to pull it up. Anyway, his score value off the fandom side, if you go and look him up, his scores is actually, he's worth 500, and he has 1 health. He applies 1 contact damage if Mega Man touches him. He has no explosion damage. His bullet damage, however, if Mega Man gets hit by one of his bullets, it actually is a 2. And what we're going to do, the speed of the bullet's a little fast, so we're going to actually knock it in half. So we're going to make it 1.5, so it's closer to how the speed of his bullets travel. And then the bonus type, we're going to set it to random. Our bonus ball is going to be the orange ball. The weapon part, even though he doesn't drop them, we're just going to make it orange. And the rest of these properties are fine. Now down here in the audio clips, we're going to set the audio. So for the damage clip, that's going to be number 9 for enemy damage. The block clip for when his shell is down is going to be the dink, which is 11. The shoot bullet, which is number 10, so enemy shoot. And he doesn't have any energy refill, so we leave that empty. Bullet shoot position, we'll fill that in because we haven't created that game object yet. Now the bullet prefab, let's get this out of the way. We're going to go over to our prefabs folder and then weapons. And we're going to drag over the bullet. And then the explosion, if we go into our prefabs and effects, he uses a small explosion, so that's going to be explode effect 1. So now that that's pretty much set up for the most part, except for a few things, we're going to right click on him, his game object, and we're going to create another empty. This one we're going to be calling bullet shoot pause, or bullet shoot position. This is going to be for, and you're going to leave the tag as untagged, and the layer is going to be default. And then you're going to hit this this little box up here, and you can use any icon you want, but I'm going to use the little yellow circle or the little yellow sphere. It's going to mark where his shoot position is going to be. And that's actually, if we bring this over, let's just shrink this up a little. Shoot position is actually going to be, one sec, it's going to be 0.01 and 0.11. So when his helmet opens, it's actually going to be right where the crosshair or the cross is. And we can actually check that out real quick. Let's just change the sprite so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's lock this. We go to the graphics. We don't want Mambu, we want Metall open. So let's go put the Metall open there. And you can see it's basically right where the cross is. That's where the bullets are going to shoot from, or it's going to be the position of where they're going to come out from. So let's put it back to closed. Okay, so that's the shoot position. Next, we're going to add another empty onto him, and this is going to be for the hitbox. Actually, we can unlock that. So this is going to be the hitbox, and that's also going to be on untagged and default layer. And then we're going to add on a box collider. And the box collider is going to be a trigger. And if we get the properties, we'll just copy this actually. Right click on the box collider from the parent. And we're going to copy the component, go over to the hitbox, and then paste the component values. And then you can put on the trigger. So that sets him up for the most part. Now we got to work on the animations. So that's all his properties other than the script, which actually, you know what? We're going to go, we'll come back to that actually. It's not a big deal. So we're going to work on his animation now. So let's just move this here. So in the animations folder, we're going to go into enemies. We're going to create a new folder here. And we're going to call it Metall. We're going to go in there. We're going to create a new controller. It's going to be the same name, Metall. And then we're going to create one animation. Going to be called Metall Closed. And then you can just duplicate that. And then that one's going to be called Metall Open. So open and closed. So we're going to double click on Metall, the controller, and it should open up the animator. And we're going to go back over to the project, highlight closed, go back there to animator, right click, create state from empty. So we're going to default to his closed animation. And then we're going to go highlight the open one and bring that in. Right click from clip. So there, closed and open are in there now. So is closed. We're not going to loop these. These are basically single frames, so we don't have to loop them. However, we will change the samples on each to 1. So on closed, we're going to change the sample to 1, and on open, change the sample to 1. Closed is only going to have 2 things done to it. So we're going to add in his sprite first from the graphics. So we're going to add on Metall Closed. Actually, before we can do that, it would help if we put on the animator. So drag the animator over and assign the controller to him. There. So now we have him on here. So now we're going to go with sprites. So go over to the graphics folder. Look for Metall Closed. We're going to drag that there. So that's his close. When we preview it, it's the same thing that we've already seen. But now, the open, so we're going to change it to open. And then we're going to drag on the open. We preview it. Okay. So that's his open. You can see that the bullet shoe position matches the cross still. But what we're going to do is we're going to change the size of his box colliders. So we're going to hit it on record. And we're going to change the properties on this. So the Y offset is actually going to be 0.75, and on the size Y is going to be 0.13. And then on the hitbox, it's going to be the same, so 0.075, and then on the size Y is 0.13. So now it takes up, it basically matches the size of the sprite. And then you can stop recording. So when he is got his shell down, he's invincible. And what I usually do, although you can do it through code if you want, through his different states to enable the invincibility factor, but I just use events just to kind of make it a little easier. So when the animation plays, it'll automatically call that event and then just put him in either invincible or not invincible. So on the closed, we're going to just make sure we're on this first one here. We're going to add an event. And we don't have the event defined yet because we haven't started coding it in. We'll come back and fill that in later. And on the open, same thing. We're going to add an event on there too. So he's pretty much done for the most part. We can get this out of the way. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our scripts and then enemies. And we're going to create a new script. So inside of there, new C#, we're going to call it Metall Controller. And then we're going to open that up in Visual Studio. And we're going to fill that in. So I'm going to come back in 1 second. Let me switch over here, and I'll be back, and we're going to fill in all the code. Okay, so it's filled in. So now we're going to go over his code. So inside of the Metall controller, this is basically everything that gets him to work. So starting from the top, we're going to do the components, the animator, the box collider 2D, the rigid body 2D, and the enemy controller. So that's the first thing that we're going to define. Then we're going to define 3 bools. One that's called is facing right, which basically is his way of saying, am I facing right or am I not facing right? And then we're going to have one called do attack, which is basically going to be a flag that tells him I need to determine what my shoot's going to be like next. And then we're going to have a bool that's called is shooting, whether he's already shooting or not. Then we have 4 floats that are all timers. A timer for while he's open, timer for while he's closed, a timer when he's shooting, and a sleep timer. That's kind of like at the end of his sequence. And then we're going to have 2 integers. They're called shoot sequence num and shoot sequence count. The num is basically the where we're going to increment to see which shooting number that we're on. And then the count is basically from the random that we pick up how many shots he's going to basically taking for that sequence. Then we have a flag in here, a bool that's serialized. It's going to be called enable AI, which we've been introduced in last video, but I think it was in another one. This is basically going to control whether his logic is going to be turned on or not. We don't want it to be running per se if he's like way at the end of the level or something like that, or at the end of the map. So we can turn it on as we need it. And then we have all these publics, which are floats, and then there's this one integer. We'll just the shoot sequence max, which is he has a maximum shot sequence of 5. If you watch the original guy, it looks. I mean, I've watched him a few times. I haven't seen him shoot more than 5 sequences at a time without having then a long sleep pattern after that. So I believe it's 5 at the most. But you know, this is an approximation. It's not like I have the original code or anything like that. And keep in mind, this is also a base model. I'm going to give it to you. That's working. You do whatever you want with it. You can tweak it out. You can change it up however you want. So it's up to you. And then we're going to have these 5 floats here. First one's the open delay. So there's going to be a half a second open delay while he's, so basically a half a second that he's open. There's a half a second while he's closed. And then there's a shoot delay, which is basically like before he takes a shot. So he's open for about a quarter of a second, and then he shoots. And then his sleep delay, which is basically at the end of his shooting sequence, he sleeps for about 2 seconds. Like I said, these are all approximations, but you can change these up, and they're public, so they'll be in the inspector, so you can do what you want with them. Then he has 2 states. He's either closed or he's open. So we do a public enum, and then we have another one here that's basically called Metall state, and this is basically going to control what his state is. In the awake function here, we get a handle to all of our components and save them in the variables. Down here in the start, his sprite by default faces right, but Mega Man always basically starts on the left side going right, so we're going to have him facing left. So we set is facing right defaults, and we flip him, so the sprite flips. And by default, he's not shooting. And we're going to initialize both of the open and closed timers. We don't know. You can have them start at open, but we should always have them starting at closed. So we're going to initialize both these timers with the delays. Now down here in the update, we have the freeze enemy, which is part of the enemy controller. So while he's frozen, we just kick ourselves out of updates so we don't process anything in here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look for the player and store it as player in this game object called player, so that we can figure out where the player is on the screen in relation to Metall, and then we're going to get the distance. So the closer Mega Man gets to within that distance is basically, then he'll start his shooting. And is there a distance in here? Yeah. So, and then I'm going to miss that. View distance. So we have 2. So 2 units is where basically his view distance is. And so if Mega Man is less than those 2, then that's when he's going to wake up and start shooting. As long as enable AI is turned on. If it's not, then he's not going to do anything. He's just going to sit there with his helmet down or his helmet up, depending on how you start him. And then so we're going to switch on his state, and we're going to start with the closed state and look at that first. So we're going to get the current value of our facing right. And so if it's true or false, and we're going to check in relation to where Mega Man is he on the left side or the right side, and then we're going to flip him accordingly. So we're only going to flip him when his helmet is down. If you flip it while his helmet is up, it's going to look weird because the bullets will look like it's coming out of the back of his helmet if Mega Man happens to get on the other side when he's about to shoot. So we only want to turn him around when his helmet is down. So we're going to play the closed animation. And if the player is within that view distance, which basically means it's time to attack. So we're going to see if do attack is not set. Then if it's not, then we're going to reset the count back to 0. We're going to get the actually I said them backwards. So the count is the counter. The number is how many sequences we're going to shoot. So we're going to get between 1 and the max plus 1 because we know random.range when it's integers is non-inclusive. So we have to add the 1 on there, otherwise we're going to be short our max. So he's going to pick how many shots we're going to shoot for the sequence. And then set the close timer, and we're going to set do attack to true. So this is only going to happen while do attack is false. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to check and see if our count is less than the sequence number. And we're going to check our close timer. We're going to decrement while he's closed, and if he's not closed anymore, then we're going to set the shooting to false. And we're going to set the open timer, the shoot timer, and we're going to change the state to open. So while he's closed, he's going to be closed for a certain amount of time, and then we're going to go to open. And then if we have done the entire sequence, we're going to go to sleep, and when our sleep time is done, we're going to reset our do attack to false so that we can do this all over again when we go back to closed. So when we go open, we're going to play the open animation, and then we're going to see if our shot sequence count is less than the number, which basically means we haven't shot them all out yet. We're going to decrement both timers, open timer and shoot timer. And then if the shoot timer is less than 0 and we're not shooting, we're going to shoot our bullets, and we're going to set is shooting to true. And so it only happens that one time to shoot it. And then if our open timer is less than 0, which basically means now it's time to close ourselves up, we're going to set shooting to false, increment the sequence, or the count. So that's our first however many. Say we shot twice, or we're supposed to shoot 2 times max, and we only shot once, so we should be able to do this one more time. So we're going to keep track of how many times we've shot. And then we're going to reset our close timer. We're going to set our state back to closed. And this is where, if you watch him, he has a little bit of a variation in how much time is in between his shots. So there's no magic formula for this. You can do however you want to do it. But what I do here is I'm going to take a random between 0 and 4 because these are integers, so it's non-inclusive, so it's not going to be 5. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 that we choose, and we're going to divide it by 10f. So that's going to give us either 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, or 0.4. And then if it happens to be greater than 0, so it's either 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, or 0.4, we're going to take that variance and we're going to subtract it from our close timer. So he'll stay closed for a little bit shorter period. So when he opens back up and takes another shot, the bullets won't always be at the same pause in between. So, and then if our shot sequence is equal to our amount, which basically means that we've finished doing our, so we're going to go to sleep again. So that's his update logic. And you can, chop this up, make it better, do however you want to do with it. This is basically just like a working model for you to play around with. And then down here we have a public function for enable AI, so we can call this to enable the AI through code. And then our shoot bullet, which is very similar to other shoot bullets that we use for our player and other places. So what we do here is we have 3 game objects, 3 bullets, and they all have different vectors. So this one is going to go up left. This one's just going to go straight left, and then this one's going to go down left. So, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to loop through each of these. And if he happens to be facing right, we're going to flip the bullet so it goes the opposite direction. So we use our rotate by angle over in the utilities function that we created with Mambu, I believe. I don't remember exactly which guy we created, but it's over in the utility functions, so you can go and get that code, and it'll rotate the bullet by whatever angle that you pass it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our bullet prefab and make a copy of that. We're going to rename it because I don't like the copy or whatever they put on it. So it's just going to be the same name as the prefab bullet. And then we're going to set the position of the bullet, which is going to be the bullet shoot pause transform position. And then all of our the bullet prefab is actually sitting on layer order 5, which is actually underneath of this guy, which is actually going to be on layer order 10. And if you watch the video, the bullets are actually above his helmet. They don't come out from behind him, they come out on top of him. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set the sorting order to 11 so that his bullets, when they come out, they're going to be on top of his helmet. So they show coming right from that cross area. So that's how we're going to do it by using the sprite renderer and using the sorting order. So we're going to reset it from the default bullet prefab 5, we're going to make it 11. And then we're going to set the bullet type to the mini orange bullet. And his damage value is based on whatever we set over there in the controller. With the bullet damage was 2, the bullet speed is going to be 1.5, the direction, which we have over here, and it's going to collide with the player, so the player is going to be the one to get the damage. And we're going to set the destroy delay on the bullet to 5, so after 5 seconds it'll go poof. Now, unless it gets outside of the camera view, and then the game manager will take care of it and go poof, and then we're going to shoot the bullet. And then we're going to play the audio clip. 1 bullet sound, all for all 3, just 1 shot, 1 sound. Then we have these 2 down here, which is the Invincible Animation. So we start it by calling enemy controller invincible true and enemy controller invincible false. So we make him invincible or we don't make him invincible. So these are what is going to be used in the events for the animation. So with that said, I'm going to come back over here. We're going to go back over to Metall and bullet shoot pause. We're going to assign that now. And then down here, we're going to add on the script. And so here are all the default properties. I'm going to start them out at closed. And for this guy, we're going to do the enable AI. But before we do that, we're going to make a prefab out of him. So let's go over to prefabs, enemies, and we're going to drag him in here. So now we have a prefab of him. And we're going to just bring this guy up here. So that should be basically everything for him. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable his AI because he's not going to start doing anything until Mega Man's within this 2-unit distance. And he's much like Screwdriver and Blaster. And then what we're going to do is we can bring this back over. And then we're going to shrink this down, stretch this back out. And so his position that we're going to put him is actually, I'm going to put him over here on this 3rd highway. And his spot is actually going to be at negative 2.633. And his Y, because it's trying to be as close to the how Mega Man's feet are on the ground and everything, so it's going to be a really funny number, which you can round up if you'd like. But it's the Y position is going to be 0.4329999. So I guess you can round it up to a 3 if you want. So that basically puts them over here on the 3rd highway. So I'm going to play this now, but before I do that, I'm going to save my changes and hopefully I didn't forget anything. And we're going to run it and see what happens. So you can see already, I forgot the events. Yeah, I always forget something. So bring that out of the way. Go back over to him and his animation. Actually, we're going to do it from the prefab. So on the closed, we're going to set it to start Invincible Animation. And then on the open, we're going to set it to stop Invincible Animation. So on the closed, hover over it, now it's start. If you go on the open, hover over it, it should be stop. So there. Now we're going to save it. Go back and do that again. And play it. Okay. Errors are going down there in the console. So let's get rid of him. Get rid of that guy. Get rid of that guy. Kill that guy. Put it on Invincible for right now. So I'm going to get a little closer. Those are my 3 shots. So he's got 2 in the sequence. 3, 4, 4 in that sequence. 4 in that sequence. And you see there was a little bit of a variation in how much spacing there was between those bullets right there. So you can see that variance is taking, playing into it. A little bit of randomization in how in the shooting. There's the invincibility. Some more invincibility, and then we're just gonna kill him. That was 1. There he goes. And collect the bonus ball. And we'll stop it right there. So that is Metall in a nutshell. So, like I said, you can change them up however you want. You can play around with those values for the timing, things like that. And you could use coroutines or however you want to, chop up his logic and reorganize it or however. I'm sure there's better ways of doing it or making it cleaner than what I did. I kind of like to lump everything into the update, but like I said, this is the first round of building him. So I have this is just a little bit different from when I originally created him. So it's just a tad different. But I didn't really take any time to optimize him or make him better in any way, other than maybe like redoing the variance part a little bit. But feel free to do what you like with him. So that brings us to the end of the video. So if you found it useful, give it a thumbs up. It's always appreciated. If you haven't subscribed, and you can subscribe. This is actually video number 25 in the series. So we got some more that we're going to be doing before I end up finishing this out. I don't know exactly when yet. It'll happen. So can't do Mega Man forever. So stay safe out there, and I'll catch you at the next video. Goodbye.